All right, well, we're going to do the abridged version of our opening to chapter 2 over ethics. And the first thing I want to do is just read a story from the beginning of the chapter. When the rumors started, Brian Pertzborn, Chief Financial Officer for a prominent charity in the Southwest United States, called a press conference. Dozens of reporters showed up. Brian looked directly into the cameras and said, "I assure you that no one at this charity has taken money away from the children and families we work so hard to serve. Embezzlement is illegal and a serious breach of trust. I would never let either happen." Brian's presentation was highly convincing, and for a time it quieted the rumors. Unfortunately, his statements were false. 2 months later, he was indicted by the federal government for stealing more than $2.5 million from the charity. At the trial, it became clear that Brian was guilty as charged. It also came out that on the very day of his press conference, he had tried to cover his tracks by transferring some of the embezzled money to an overseas bank account. When the judge sentenced Brian to a stiff prison sentence, she made clear that she was influenced partly by Brian's lies at the press conference. Had he told the truth, his pleas for leniency might have been better received. This is a story that shows why public speaking needs to be guided by a strong sense of integrity. Brian Pertzborn was persuasive when speaking to the press, but he was unethical and lying to cover his illegal activities. As a result, he hurt people who relied on the charity, destroyed his reputation, and ended up with a long jail sentence. Perhaps if he had confessed before the cameras that day, he would have received a fine and a reprimand instead of the harshest sentence the judge could impose. So this story is just one of many, sadly, of unethical behavior. And that's one thing that, of course, in our class we want to avoid. Many times as public speakers, we want our audience to agree with what we say, to be impressed by it, but not at any cost. As our textbook points out, speech making is a form of power and carries with it heavy ethical responsibilities. Quintilian, the Roman orator and teacher of rhetoric, stated over 2,000 years ago that speech making is a good person speaking well, or at least it should be. And that is something to really, really consider as we begin preparing for speeches, that we want to be a good person speaking well. So when we think about the importance of ethics, we're looking at things like a question of is it right or wrong, moral or immoral, fair or unfair, just or unjust, honest or dishonest. We deal with those questions on a daily basis. But sometimes there are situations that maybe don't have just a specific right or wrong. We have to look at a lot of different factors. So let's look at a couple of examples. And this is something just for you to think about, a few situations that you might find yourself in. You are a researcher who really wants recognition and a raise from your supervisor. You realize that if you shade your data just a bit, you can gain credit for a major scientific breakthrough. Would you do that or no? The second example, you are picking up lunch at a local fast food restaurant and realize as you walk out the door that the cashier gave you $5 extra in change. Do you take it back? Third situation, you know that a classmate used cheat notes on an exam and the teacher did not notice. Will you tell the teacher? What if that person is your best friend? Is there always a cut and dry answer for ethical questions? Some ethical issues possibly, but on most it's a little bit more complicated, and so we have what's referred to as a gray area. One textbook titled Ethics in Human Communication states, we should formulate meaningful ethical guidelines, not inflexible rules. Our decisions are based on such factors as our values, our conscience, and our sense of right and wrong. So next, we will in class watch a video over ethics, and I will provide that link with this. But we're going to go ahead and move on, and I do need you to get ready to take some notes over chapter 2. You can just title it Chapter 2 Ethics. We'll take a few notes today and the next class that we will be doing over this unit. So if you'll go ahead and you may need to pause the video. You can type this on a document or do it in your handwriting. Just be sure and keep up with it. So if you'll go ahead and get ready for that. What we are calling these notes are the 5 guidelines for ethical speaking. So the first one is to make sure your goals are ethically sound. Again, the first of the 5 guidelines for ethical speaking, make sure your goals are ethically sound. Now, during World War II, we all know about Hitler and how he stirred the German people to condone war, invasion, even genocide. And more recently, we've seen politicians, we've seen business leaders who have defrauded their investors, a lot of different examples that we see, sadly. And we know that some of those are just totally right or wrong. There is no gray area. But let me give you an example of one that might have a little gray area. Several years ago, a former student turned down a job in public relations at the American Tobacco Institute. Why? Because the job would require her to lobby on behalf of the cigarette industry. She did not think that ethically she could promote a product that she saw cost thousands of deaths and illnesses every year. Now, for someone else, that may not be an ethical decision, judging it as right or wrong. So you can see where everything's, again, not always black and white. The next guideline for ethical speaking is that you should be fully prepared for your speech. You should be fully prepared for your speech. You have an obligation to both yourself and your listeners to prepare fully every time you stand in front of an audience. The better you prepare, the better the speech is going to be. But the obligation to your listener is no less important. Think of it this way. The person who makes a bad 20-minute speech to an audience of 200 people waste only 20 minutes of their own time. But that speaker is going to waste more than 75 hours of the audience's time. So maybe that will help you understand why it's important to be prepared. Your speech classmates are worthy of your best effort, as if you were even addressing a jury or a business meeting, a church congregation, a city council. You need to see the importance of preparation for your classmates. Number 3, be honest in what you say. Nothing is more important to ethical speech making than honesty. Public speaking rests on the unspoken assumption that words can be trusted and people will be truthful. Without this assumption, there is no basis for communication, no reason for one person to believe anything that another person says. That quote comes straight from our textbook, and it is so very true. We need to be honest in what we say. So that means no changing the statistics a little bit to make them fit, maybe only giving partial truths when you present a speech. You want to be totally truthful so that we know we can trust you in what you have to say. Number 4, avoid name calling and other forms of abusive language. Again, I'll repeat number 4, avoid name calling and other forms of abusive language. We've all heard that old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. We know there is no truth really in that statement. Name calling is, of course, the use of language to defame, demean, or degrade individuals or groups. That is something that, of course, we do not want any part of in this class, hopefully anywhere. And believe it or not, we are protected by the Constitution, free speech, that you can do that. But regardless of the legal issues, the legal aspects, we want to be ethical so that we are not going to stoop to that and any type of name calling at all. And finally, the fifth guideline, put ethical principles into practice. This is number 5, the last one, put ethical principles into practice. A quote from the book, "It is easy to pay lip service to the importance of ethics. It is much harder to act ethically. Yet that is just what a responsible public speaker must do. As one popular book on ethics stated, being ethical means behaving ethically all the time, not only when it's convenient." When we are back in class, I will be giving you a checklist that really helps you look over how you've prepared your speech and to make sure that you are being ethical. And so you will have a copy of that to use. All right. The next thing I want to do is give you an assignment, and we're almost finished. This is the abridged version of class. But you are going to be getting a self-assessment chart. And it is available in assignments where in the classroom. I can also give you a hard copy if you need that. But I want you to answer this survey as truthfully as you can, because I will never see this. This is for your eyes only. But you will use it to complete the assignment, which is also in Canvas for you. But I will have this little half sheet that kind of guides you through what I want you to do. But sometimes there is confusion. And so let me just go over how you will do this assignment. Part 1 of the assignment is that you will complete the self-assessment and score your chart. Then you will create your self-improvement goal plan by selecting 3 items from this chart of the areas where you scored the lowest and where you would like to see improvement. You're going to list each area to improve and a possible strategy you could use to help you achieve your goal. So I have created a little chart that might help some of you to know what you're filling in, and that's why the chart is there. You are not required to use the chart, but for many students, this seems to be very helpful. So that's what that's for. So that's part 1. 3 areas that you scored the lowest that you would like to work on improving. The second part is on the back of the assessment chart, there's a little section called Overall I Think. It's this small little section at the very end. I want you to choose one of those and write a 50 to 75 word reflection paper on why you feel this way. Please use your best writing skills, because remember we talked earlier about having college-worthy material. And so I want you to be sure to do that with correct grammar, correct punctuation, but you will choose one of the overall I think and write a 50 to 75 word reflection paper. Again, all of this will be available for you in Canvas on assignments. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I will see you soon.